Every day, 22 American veterans commit suicide. That's one every 2 hours. That's 22 friends, 22 dads, moms, brothers, sisters, every day. That's 20, and that's also 22 deaths that can be prevented. Let me tell you the story of Keenan Reinhardt. Keenan Reinhardt was a veteran of the Army. He did several deployments in Iraq in his time in the military. He was also a good friend of mine. In 2011, Keenan Reinhardt committed suicide in a downtown Columbus hotel room. He's one of the many American veterans that become statistics. Post-traumatic stress disorder plays a big role in this.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD, is a neurological disorder that affects many people who have been through a traumatic situation. Although PTSD is often associated with veterans, not all veterans have PTSD. This may be hard to believe though, because the media talks a lot about how we need to help our veterans who have PTSD. Although it's hard to help someone when you don't even really know how to define the disorder. When we spoke with Wayne Kissel of the Delaware County Veteran Service Office, he himself had a hard time labeling what this disorder meant. After a pause, he stated, PTSD is when you have a problem. You can't get something out of your head. You keep reliving it. Although defining PTSD is hard, according to the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, some symptoms include insomnia, flashbacks, having nightmares, anger outbursts, feeling worried, nervous, or even guilty.
Fortunately, veterans who are unlucky enough to develop post-traumatic stress disorder are not out of options. There are many different treatment options for them. According to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, there are several different treatment options available for not only veterans, but for anyone that may be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Treatment options include medical marijuana, cognitive and exposure therapy, EMDR, and thousands of different support groups run by local VAs. Post-traumatic stress disorder varies from person to person, so many different treatment options are made available to better accommodate the person who may be suffering from this disorder. Cognitive therapy is when your therapist helps you understand and change how you think about your trauma and its aftermath. Your goal is to understand how certain thoughts about your trauma cause you stress and make your symptoms worse. This therapy is beneficial for veterans that feel guilty about the choices they had to make while they were in combat. It helps resolve the conflicts within themselves and helps them realize that the decisions that they had to make while they were in combat are not their fault. Exposure therapy is talking about your trauma repeatedly with a therapist. You'll learn to get control of your thoughts and feelings about the trauma, and you'll learn that you do not have to be afraid of your memories. This therapy is a little more dangerous considering you are directly facing your fears. However, therapists often use a process called desensitization, which focuses on smaller memories before going into worse memories. This is helpful because it allows you to deal with bad memories over a period of time. Though sometimes they use a process called flooding, which is when you remember a lot of bad memories all at once. This creates a situation that allows for the patient not to be overwhelmed in a situation where more than one memory may come up. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, in which, while thinking or talking about your memories, you'll focus on other stimuli, like eye movements, hand taps, or sounds. Experts are still learning about how EMDR works exactly, and there is a disagreement about whether eye movement is a necessary part of the treatment. If there were a list somewhere of how the government prioritizes the service that they give our veterans, post traumatic stress disorder support would most definitely be number one on that list, as it should be.
Another issue that makes it hard for veterans to transition from combat life to civilian life is job availability. When asked about whether it's difficult to retire at a young to find retire and find careers after being in the military, veteran Michael Carroll, who is currently serving at The Ohio State University as the assistant provost for Veterans Affairs, said, "Yes and no. Certain career fields make the transition easier. A lot of guys go into similar fields in the civilian world that they were involved in the military. They have qualities like leadership, teamwork, logistics, and working under stress. They know how to make decisions, they're drug free. It's hard if your skills don't directly transfer. Sometimes it's easier for younger veterans than older veterans because of their long term leadership, and sometimes they are overqualified. A lot of people think veterans have a hard time finding jobs because of the stigmas towards PTSD and the fact that there are some stereotypes about what a military personnel's personality is like. This was confirmed when we spoke with Army veteran Scott Higgins, who currently works at the Ohio State University Department of Psychology. Some skills were not transferable. Some who may not have education, especially now that PTSD is more known. People are worried about the flashback or anger issues. However, there are some benefits about retiring through the military. One being the GI Bill that was originally created in 1944 but later updated after the events of September 11th. According to the United States Department of Veteran Affairs, the post 9/11 GI Bill states that if you have at least 90 days of aggregate active duty service after September 10, 2001, and are still active duty, or if you are an honorably veteran or were discharged with a service-connected disability after 30 days, you may be eligible for this VA-administered program. The GI Bill allows for eligible veterans to get paid education for up to 36 months within 15 years of leaving active duty. This helps veterans to be able to get a degree or advance the degree they already have in order to get a better job.
For our action portion, we decided to make snack bags for a group of Army National Guard reservists that were heading out for their drill weekend this past weekend.
We met with Nancy Stimmen Ferrelli, who has 2 sons who are involved in this National Guard, and we met with her on Thursday, April 15th, prior to school to deliver our finished product so that they would have it for drill weekend.
The reason we decided to do this action portion is because through our research, we discovered that people are so concerned about post-service military personnel that reservists and currently serving military personnel kind of get put on the back burner a little bit when they really have to deal with some of the same issues that post-service military personnel have to deal with.